I just turned 30 this month, and instead of having a glow up video, I'm going to be having a 30-year-old artist starter pack. And if you're new here, my name is Indy. I'm known as Do This by Indy on Instagram and TikTok. I feel like in your 20s, it's all about trying things, doing everything, trying to prove yourself, trying to see what sticks. In your 30s, 30 feels a little bit less of becoming someone new and more like refining who you already are at the core. So this is what I'm going to be keeping as an artist in my 30s and what I'm going to be leaving behind in my 20s. And in doing so, it's going to be highlighting three pillars: the artist identity, my content and social life, and my business plan. Starting off with my artist and creative identity. So one thing that I'm keeping in my 30s is to create even when it's not profitable. And I don't just mean financially profitable, but also algorithmically profitable, trend profitability, and engagement profitability. Somewhere along the way of you turning your art into a hobby, into a business, every idea of yours goes through a number of different filters. For example, will this item sell? Will it go viral? Is this a trendy product? And is this what people expect me to do? And while these questions aren't technically wrong, but if these are the only questions that you're going to ask yourself, your art slowly stops becoming you and more so for the algorithm. I've realized the products and the art that I'm most proud of, the ones that I feel most aligned to, weren't created because it felt strategic. They were created because I stayed curious. I played with different colors. I liked the medium that I was working on. I tried new strokes, new brushes, and everything felt honest to me. And not just because TikTok or Instagram said they liked it or that it fit a certain aesthetic in my Instagram feed. Trends are going to be loud and ever changing, but that doesn't mean that you have to. I believe if you're an artist and you're true to yourself and you stick to your branding, the right people will find you. And in my 20s, I felt like I was always chasing the loudness and wanting to be visible, chasing proof that what I was making was working. But at 30, I want to create art that is recognizable to me. If someone were to just scroll past different art pieces without my name being attached, they'll know that it's still mine. That kind of clarity doesn't necessarily come from chasing trends. It comes from repetition, having something that is uniquely yours and continuously trying to refine it. And here's the thing, it is a business at the end of the day, but when you create things to only have the intention of selling it, of course you're going to make money, but you also risk creative burnout. However, when you create things that are just for you, the money might come a little bit slower, but the fulfillment lasts way longer. But like I said again, we are still running a business here, and I'm more so kind of guiding you to find that balance between creating something that is for yourself, but also something that is going to resonate with everyone else. Because at the end of the day, I don't want profitability to be my only guiding compass to my creativity. If I do that, I feel like I'm going to lose my sense of self and the reasoning why I fell in love with art in the first place. So in my 30s, what I'm going to be keeping is making things, first and foremost, that I enjoy. Continue to explore things so that I can expand my creativity and trusting that my authenticity will be worthwhile in the long run. I think at the end of the day, I don't want to just create to create. I want to be able to recognize my own work. And so on a related note, another thing that I'm going to be keeping in my 30s is to continue to be a beginner and not be afraid to be a beginner again, which sounds simple, but can also feel terrifying. Because when you build an identity of being that artist, that creative person, that crafty girl, you're going to have to be that person and not make any mistakes. You gotta be perfect. You gotta prove to your audience that that's why you have that title. It gives the illusion that you have to be good at everything in that field. Otherwise, you're going to lose credibility for being that art girl, the creative one, the small business owner. Because of that, like, it's so hard to be like, oh, I don't know, or like wanting to continue to learn and improve on yourself, or even to just start over and become a beginner. Because being a beginner kind of equates to being in that like awkward phase. You make bad version of things, you Google the basic things, you waste material trying new mediums. And somewhere along the way, I feel like I kind of just gave up trying something new or wanting to be a beginner somewhere because I wanted to be good at something. For example, I tried watercoloring for the first time, and I was trying to play around with how to even use the tools because it's so different from like painting with acrylic paint, for example. And I felt like I was so bad at it that I just stopped altogether because I didn't want to look like a fool. Because when you're skilled in one area, for example, I feel like I am pretty decent with acrylic paint. Starting somewhere kind of similar but more different, it feels like I'm shrinking because I'm so bad at it. But at the end of the day, it's not that I'm shrinking. I'm more so expanding my creativity. I'm expanding my skill sets. Because every time I do try a new medium, whether it is water painting, crocheting, or playing with clay, I notice something about myself. It makes me playful again. I feel like there's no pressure to ever monetize my water painting or sell it. And honestly, there's no even pressure for me to show anybody my art. And I think as an artist who turns their passion into a small business, we kind of lose that playfulness a little bit. I feel like in your 20s, it's so much more easier to be a beginner or more normal to be a beginner because you have that excuse of like, oh, my life is just starting. I just graduated college and I finally have the money and the time to go back or even start a new hobby. But when you turn 30, I feel like your ego gets a little bit louder. It's telling you things like, oh, you should already know all of this stuff. You're too old to be bad at this, and stick to what you're good at. But I feel like just because I turned 30 doesn't mean I want my ego to be stunting my creativity. So what I'm keeping in my 30s in this aspect is to, you know, stay curious and stay creative. And what I'm leaving behind is, even though I am an artist, I can still be a bad artist and I can continue to expand my skill sets as an artist. And I don't have to be good at everything. And so the next thing that I'm going to be leaving behind in my 20s is to stop comparing my timeline with another artist or another small business, because there's always going to be someone who's ahead of you, someone who's younger than you, someone who's going viral. But that doesn't necessarily need to be comparative to your own timeline. Because personally, I'm very excited to be 30 and entering a new decade. But as a small business owner and an artist, I am terrified of turning 30. I feel like I have this like anxiousness of turning 30, and I think it's related to what I sell. And it's a lot of like cutesy, you know, dumpling hat, shrimp chip keychain things that I feel like are too much on the younger side, versus at 30 I feel like I should be selling more, I don't know, sophisticated things, more serious things. But at the same time, I feel like I'm 30 and like I love those things. Like I would get those things for myself. And also I feel like at 30 I expected my business to be at a certain point, and I think that's also just comparing myself to my peers who are also my age or like started at the same time that I did, and I'm not anywhere near where they're at. So I feel like that comparison has kind of been the bane of my existence, because I feel like I am more like nitpicky and more strict to myself of like, oh, I should be working a lot harder, or like I should be at a certain point by now. The products that I'm selling to, I feel like I am more, I guess, more strategic towards it, more so than like having fun with it. And that's kind of tying back to one of the first things that I'm going to want to leave behind in my 20s, which is to create things for myself again. But I feel like I don't put a lot of things out anymore because I'm like, oh, that's not gonna sell, or like, oh, I love it, but I don't think other people will like it. And so I gotta just stop comparing myself to my peers and with other artists and just kind of do my own thing. I feel like people appreciate authenticity more so than buying something that's on trend or something that everyone else is creating. In terms of like the timeline of everything, I feel like a lot of my peers started like way later than I did, but they are way ahead of me at this point. And I feel like sometimes a failure because I'm not exceeding them when I started a lot earlier than them. But I also have to think about that one, sell different products than them. We have different audiences, and honestly, both of our businesses can exist at the same time. They say comparison is the thief of joy, and it's so true. When I tell myself that like, oh, I should be at a certain point in my business, it really demotivates me to want to continue or even continue to create, because I'm always going to be second guessing what I'm creating. So I'm leaving all of that behind, the comparison to other people, and just to think about how my business could be just a never-ending timeline until like I'm 100 or so, and I have all the time in the world to be creating and running this business. Okay, so now that we kind of talked through the artist identity, let's go through the content and social media identity. So what I'm going to be keeping in my 30s is showing the process of everything and not just the polished, done product. Because for a long time I thought that all the content that I post has to be completed things. It has to be finished pieces, finished thoughts, finished versions of myself. But I've realized something now that I am 30 years old. Perfection is inspiring, and the process is more relatable than the finished product. And people don't follow you just because you're perfect. They follow you because they see themselves in your middle as well. And the middle is where the magic happens. That sketch before the final painting, that messy desk with all your craft supplies, the color test that just didn't work for your sample, and the launch that, just never sold. I feel like that's more of the real story, more so than the final piece. I feel like when I show my final piece, it doesn't tell a story. It may look effortless, it may look aesthetically pleasing on my feed, but I feel like I'm also distancing myself from my audience. Showing my final product shows my audience that, oh, I have everything figured out. I have no mistakes. I have no room to grow. And honestly, who can relate to that? When I show the in-between, the doubts, the pivots, it tells people that, oh, I'm trying to figure everything out too. And I feel like that's where the connection happens between you and your audience. People want to know why you chose those colors, or why you scrapped your artwork, or why you, priced your product a certain way. You're building that connection and your trust in your audience. So at 30, I feel like I'm going to be chasing the journey and looking less impressive and just being more honest with my audience. Being impressive may get the views, but it doesn't build the community. And if someone follows me because they resonate with my realness, my messiness, and wanting to evolve with me as an artist, and that's the kind of audience that I want to grow with, not the ones that just shows up for the shiny moments. And another thing that I'm going to be leaving behind within the social media content creation theme is to stop posting just to be relevant. I feel like when you're posting just to post, it's just a surefire way of burnout. Yes, I feel like it's definitely going to be angering the algorithm gods by not posting every day, but posting to post just leads to burnout and honestly losing yourself a little bit. And this kind of all ties back into being yourself and sticking to your brand. You shouldn't just be posting things that are not related to you and becoming another post in a sea of a trending audio. Because let's be honest, not every trending audio aligns with your brand. Just because it's getting views for you doesn't mean that it's helping you create your community. And then lastly, in this theme of social media that I'm leaving behind in my 20s is doom scrolling on my phone on social media and calling it research. At the end of the day, it's not doing you any good. When I'm scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, I always give the excuse to myself like, oh, I'm just doing some research on what everyone else is doing. I'm analyzing trends, gathering inspiration for something that I could be posting as well. But after 45 minutes of scrolling on social media, I found myself just overwhelmed, overstimulated, and it didn't do me any good because I probably didn't get any inspiration on what to post for myself. I feel like if you're going to be intentionally going on social media, you're probably going to be looking at different ways of filming, different ways of editing, different angles, colors. Like, I feel like for me, that has helped a lot in terms of like finding inspiration. I feel like you have to be more intentional about what you're looking for, more so than continuously scrolling in an endless sea of videos, because each minute goes by so quickly, and before you know it, you're on social media for an hour and it's just draining at that point. Plus, I feel like doom scrolling leads to so many negative things. I feel like it ends up ultimately you kind of comparing yourself to others because you're not, I don't know, as popular as another influencer or another creative or another artist, small business owner, and you kind of leave that app feeling a little bit small because everyone just posts about their highlights, never their lowlights. So that's all you're going to be comparing yourself to. And so I feel like every time I go on social media, it's just that. I feel like I close the app and feel so much smaller than I already do, more so than feeling inspired to create. Plus, like I said before, doom scrolling is such a time suck and it goes by so quickly. You could be scrolling every day for an hour, and so by the end of the week, it's like 7 hours of you just scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, and you could be using those 7 hours to create something or do something more productive. You could be learning a new skill, better your systems, or even just reset your brain a little bit. So at 30, I'm just gonna be a little bit more aware of my time, be more intentional about utilizing social media, and to create more than to consume. I don't want to be trading my creative energy for endless consumption. And moving on to the business side of things, here are the things I'm going to be changing in terms of my mindset and what I'll be keeping from my 20s and moving on to my 30s. First things first is paying myself. And you might think that I have been doing that, or any business person has been doing that. But when you're a solo entrepreneur and you have two bank accounts, your personal and your business account, sometimes it's very easy to forget to pay yourself. And I feel like this may be a controversial take because I know some businesses love to keep their business dollars in their business bank account forever because those dollars are going to be funding a lot of things, your supplies, your new products, markets, anything business related, obviously. But a lot of the times when you're working by yourself, it's hard to remember to pay yourself as well. And I realized this while I was kind of looking at my Excel spreadsheets, doing taxes and everything. And I realized, wow, I've been doing so many markets. I've been packaging orders. I have been creating new things for the last 5 years. And not once did I pay myself. It's very difficult because at the end of the day, it is still my business account, but I'm not allowed to spend it on something frivolous. I'm not allowed to just get a little sweet treat with my business money, you know? So I feel like I think it's time to pay myself a little bit. I worked hard for that money, and it's not just gonna be sitting in a bank account for the rest of my life. I'm keeping the mindset that I started this business because I had a passion for art, but also because I want to support my life in a different way. And I'm going to have that mindset going forward that this is supposed to support my life and I should be paying myself, and not just that this business is supposed to sustain itself. So after each month, I am going to relook at how much I made, and I'm going to be giving myself a certain portion of the profits. Next up in what I'm keeping and what I'm leaving behind is in regards to long-term planning. This is where we're shifting from being a reactive artist to a creative CEO. We're not just planning for a new launch or the next quarter or the next year. We're thinking longer. We're thinking 5 years ahead and how I want it to look. I feel like if I plan one launch at a time, 1 year at a time, I feel like I'm always going to feel behind. There will always be something that I have to prepare for. There's always going to be something to restock. There's something to promote, and it just feels endless. And I feel like it also kind of creates this like urgency that kind of feels low grade, low quality. Like I'm always trying to catch up to myself. So in my 20s, I feel like I was so much more youthful. I had so much adrenaline fueling me to run this business. And to be honest, there were so many times where I was launching something new, something completely new, like a new product assortment, and I would just randomly launch it with no plan. And sometimes it just worked, honestly, but it was also very exhausting once I did that multiple times or continuously did that. Because now that I'm 30, I want some stability. I don't want to constantly have to create and have to chase launch after launch. I really just don't want to build a business that relies on urgency and spontaneity. I want stability, I want predictability, and I just want like a little breathing room when I'm running this business. Because if I'm going to be doing something, I wanted to do it with intentionality. Is that a word? Intentionality. I want to do something intentional, because I feel like when I zoom out into the next 5 years and how I see this business going, instead of asking, will this product sell fast or will I sell a lot of this product, I am starting to ask myself these questions instead. What builds brand equity? What is gonna create repeat customers? What are my core collections? What are people constantly coming back for? What systems have been working for me and I can continue using in my 30s? Because I feel like strategy isn't necessarily doing more. It's about working smarter, not harder. It's about doing less, but with more intention. So let's leave behind in our 30s working day in and day out and focus more on long-term planning. And another thing that I'm going to be keeping in my 30s is to play more. And like I said before, creative hobbies don't necessarily have to be monetized all the time. I feel like for a long time, genuinely, every time I'm creating something or doing anything outside my business is wasted time if I'm not selling it. If it wasn't inventory, if it wasn't content, if it wasn't leading to a launch or building my brand, it was just wasted time. Like, what was the point of me doing any of that? And I feel like having that mindset really turns my creativity into labor. And when your art or anything becomes productivity measured, it's just not playful anymore. And it's kind of sad as an artist and as a creative to not see art as joyful anymore and more of like a chore and like a job. And having that kind of mindset, it shifts a little bit when you're in a business, because every, brush stroke is measurable now. Every idea is a potential content, and every hobby becomes a side hustle. And while that ambition did start this business, it really made me feel like I couldn't enjoy the little things again, or like to have a hobby again. It felt like almost irresponsible of me to create just because. And for this year, I started a new series, and at this point when this video comes out, I probably only have one video, but I'm hoping to continue the series of me kind of cosplaying as a package designer, because that's something that I've always wanted to do as an artist, like create packaging or like fun stickers to seal something. So for example, the first video that I posted in this series is to package sourdough bread because one, I love baking and sourdough was something that I just recently got into. So how can I package that up? How can I make it cute for when I gift sourdough bread to my friends and family? So I feel like those are my just because kind of projects. And yes, it is content, but it is also just kind of like an inspirational thing that it's not something I'm selling at all. And honestly, I'm not getting paid to make any of this stuff. So it's just something for myself. And I feel like I'm kind of opening door a little bit with that kind of video to my fellow creatives and artists to just create again, have fun again with art. And it doesn't have to be something that you sell. I feel like that's just like the biggest challenge in this day and age of having to turn everything into a side hustle. It really doesn't. If I make something and it never turns out to be something that makes $1 million, that's okay. If I spend an afternoon like experimenting with color or just new tools and nothing comes out of it, that's okay too. Or if I'm taking a class just for fun and I'm just wanting to be curious, that's fine too. There's no harm in wanting to experiment with yourself and try something new, because not everything that is meaningful needs to be monetized. The next thing that I'm leaving behind in my 20s is romanticizing burnout, because for a long time I feel like I wore exhaustion like a badge of honor. I worked late nights, I worked straight from my 9-to-5 job, and like I said, in my 20s everything was run through adrenaline. But now that I'm 30, I need to slow down a little bit and I cannot be burning out. I feel like the last year or so, I have just been taking a lot more hiatuses. I've been gone for like months on end from this business because I was just truly burned out. Like I couldn't make another reel, I couldn't make another product, let alone, or even just draw. So that's just not something that I want to sustain in my 30s. Like when I was 20, I was just answering emails as soon as I get them or doing millions of markets back to back every single weekend. And at that point, like I felt so proud that I had so many things to do. It was almost like the more tired I was, the more serious I was about my business. And exhaustion was the proof of dedication. But burnout is really not the proof of dedication at all. Somewhere along the way, I feel like there's so many reels and TikToks and people just saying like, if you're not overwhelmed, you're not ambitious enough. If you're not tired, you're not trying hard enough. If you're resting, someone else is getting ahead of you. And as a small business owner that's trying to really make it in the world, it's a very dangerous mindset to be in, because at the end of the day there's always something you could be doing. And I feel like I learned that mindset when I was working in retail, where you're not allowed to just be, standing around. There's clothes to fold, things to clean, there's always something to do. But that mindset is also because someone is paying you to do something and not just standing around, obviously. So I feel like that mindset kind of was ingrained in my head that like I should always be doing something and I should not be resting. Otherwise, money is not gonna roll in. There's always going to be another product that you can make, another post, another market, another idea even. A to-do list just seems really endless. So if your idea of success and your standard for success is getting to that end of the to-do list, then you're never going to get there. Plus, feeling burnt out isn't going to make yourself feel any better about your small business. I feel like you're going to feel more resentful. You're going to feel uninspired. I sure was when I was burnt out. Like I couldn't even pick up a pencil to draw anything because my mind was just full of things that was not art related. Is that when I'm burnt out, I don't create from inspiration, I create from obligation. And that energy really shows. The work that you put out onto your Instagram feed feels really forced, and the joy kind of disappears a little bit too. and people notice. And what's the point of building a creative business when you yourself don't feel creative? So in my 30s, I'm going to be choosing a more sustainable ambition route, one that includes boundaries, planned rest, and launching with a lot of breathing room. Like right when I finish launching, packing orders and everything, I'm gonna be taking a little break. And lastly, days that just don't feel optimized, where I have to do a million things in one day. Let's start spreading things throughout the week, throughout the month. Like, you don't have to get everything done in one day, because at the end of the day, I do wanna be doing this well into my 40s, my 50s, my 60s. Like, I'm not just doing it when I'm 30 and 31. Like, there's so many more years ahead where I can be doing this, and I want to have a sustainable approach to it. So that is that. I feel like when people talk about their 30s, they really think about reinvention, a new beginning, a glow up, a transformation. But honestly, I feel like 30s doesn't feel like you have to be someone completely new. It feels like I'm just, elevating myself a little bit from what I was in my 20s and just making it a lot better. I don't have to be a new person just because I'm entering a new decade. And if you made it to the end of this video, hopefully you found a new perspective of being in your 30s or turning 30s. And if you're years away from being 30, I'm here to tell you that being 30 is not a scary age to be turning to. It's such a great time to join a new decade, and I heard it's a lot better than the 20s. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned a lot, and until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this.